didn't get water, nor did I get tea. Oh well. That is just the way it's gonna be, at least for the next half hour or so. But welcome, friends. So today, as far as I can tell, as long as there's no issue with, Twitch, as long as we don't have an issue here. Looks like we're alright. See, I was getting people saying that there was issues with the bite rate and stuff like that yesterday. And so, always gotta check that. Today, yeah, we're at that, and it looks like everything's okay. I think bite rate unstable. Average stream bite rate too high. No, such is the way of it. But that's okay. That's okay. Hope everyone who is watching, who's listening, hope everyone's doing well today. Today, my friends, we are going to do a bit of a documentation crawl on Ruby. We are going to go through the Ruby in 20 minutes, and I will also pull out some documentation, and we might do some live coding on the editor, because I think I figured out how to do that without giving too much away. And yeah, we can go from there. Alright, so my friends, let's try to do Ruby in 20 minutes. Do I think we're going to do Ruby in 20 minutes? No. Yesterday we were going to do Ruby in 30 minutes, and this took up about 2 hours, so I'm not going to give in to the propaganda of the documentation saying we can do something within 20 minutes. Come on now. But let's read Ruby in 20 minutes, my friends. So, Ruby in 20 minutes. Introduction. This is a small Ruby tutorial that should take no more than 20 minutes to complete. It makes the assumption that you already installed Ruby, which we already have. If you don't have it, install it. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. I believe this gets us C as well. I could be wrong. So I had problems installing C and C++, and then I took 15 minutes and it actually worked. Made it work. First time I did it was lying in my bed on my belly, so I don't suggest that if you're trying to download C or C++. Interactive Ruby. Ruby comes with a program. Ruby comes with a program that will show the results of any Ruby statement you feed it. Playing with Ruby code in interactive sessions like this is a terrific way to learn the language. Depending upon what you've got, I wanted to use this in Linux. Unfortunately, WSL is not friendly to my computer, so we won't worry about that today. I'm on a Windows, unfortunately, so the world has to run on Windows. So we'll go through this tutorial. We open this up. We get interactive Ruby. You can see a PowerShell right here. Huzzah. So we do this. We can go hello world. We can go hello Twitch, and press this out. Hello Twitch. Right. Rubio betas. Fantastic. What just happened? Did we just write the world's shortest hello world program? Not exactly. The second line is IRB's way of telling us the result of the last expression is evaluated. We want to print out hello world, we need a bit more, right? So if we want to do this, I'm assuming this is also looking at a pointer. So puts, ooh, we have a little bit of an autocomplete here, don't we? Hello Twitch. You do that, or we can just do, well, you do what, yeah. Hello YouTube. For those who are watching on YouTube. Right. Puts is the basic command to print something out in Ruby, much like print in both print statements in both Java and Python, for those who are familiar. And I guess suppose echo in PHP. So, look, I'm trying to be relatable. Puts the basic command to print something out in Ruby. But then, what's with this equals less than nil, or arrow nil bit? Well, that's a result of the expression puts. Puts always returns nil, which Ruby's absolutely positively nothing value. So I guess this is a nil. Interesting little bit, but close that up there. Now we can do some math here. Let's do 100 multiplied by 1,000, or 10,000 rather, and we get 1,000,000. So, of course, in the example here, it's 3 plus 2, easy enough. But how about 3 times 2? We could type it in. It's short enough, but you also are able to go up and change what you just entered. So if you hit the up arrow, right, the keyboard will bring it up with 3 plus 2. And if it does, you can use the left arrow and move more the sign. So yeah, that works as well. Anyway, if you know how to use, this is basically just explaining basic keyboard stuff. So this is stuff I didn't know. It took me way too late to actually figure this out. So if you go up arrow, you get the stuff you had before. For those of you who just can use the command line. Now we can go, right, 3 times 2. You get that. If you multiply that, right, you get 9. Right, the double asterisk is a way of saying to the power of. So the power of 2, or 3 to the power of 2, right, you get 9. But what if we want to go the other way around, right, using the square root of something? I was never a math guy, so math, and of course we go methods, put it in capital, math. Interesting little autocomplete there. Nope, not square root result D. Okay. Square root. Okay, do we need the parentheses? No, we don't. Okay, based on our tutorial last night, parentheses are optional in Ruby. Okay, wait. What's the last one? You guess it. I just figured out that that's the square root of 9. You're right. But let's take a closer look first. First of all, what's math? Believe you me, I wish I knew. Math is built-in module for mathematics. So, built-in keyword. Modules serve 2 roles in Ruby. This shows 1 role, grouping similar methods together under a familiar name. Math contains methods like sin and tan. Next is the dot. What does a dot do? The dot is how you identify a receiver of a message. Alright. What's the message? In this case, it's square root 9, which means the method squirt is shorthand for square root with the parameter of 9. Right, the result, you can call the value of 3.1. Or that's not a 1, that's 0, 3.0. You might notice that it's not just 3. That's because most of the time the square root of a number won't be an integer. So the method always returns the floating point number. So let's do 100. Right, so clearly we get, square root of 1,000 is 31.62. Remember that one. So we want to remember the result from the math, the signs, right? So I suppose we can go, in this case, we can, so the moment I give it an equals, we go power of 2, that's going to give us 9. Then we go b equals, I noticed that turns into a 4 power 2. Now we go math. That's, I don't remember with lol. Guy said this is equal D. No, wait a minute. Square. What was? It just came up. And square root a plus. And I guess it's 5. Alright. So as the great as great as this for a calculator, we're getting away from traditional hello world message. Beginning the tutorial, folks. So let's get back to that. Right, so we can see clearly that there's a bunch of cool stuff we can already do in the reactor of Ruby, though. Let's continue on here. Ruby in 20 minutes. I'm not timing this, more or less, but I am recording it. So what if we want to say hello? And a lot of ways to get our fingers all tired. We need to define the method. So we go math, def, hi, puts. Now, is this doing indentation block on its own? Hello, Twitch. Right. Oof. Oof. And no, that's wrong. And there we go. Hi. Yeah. So code def hi starts the definition of the method and tells Ruby we're defining a method name, and that is name is hi. The next line in the body would be the same line which you saw earlier with puts hello world. Finally, the last line end tells Ruby we're done defining the method. Ruby responds with arrow hi. Now, as we remember, this is from yesterday. We see the semicolon after that. Right? We know that is not. That is a symbol, not a variable, right? So this takes up less space, and this is less bits. And it tells us that we're done defining the method. This response could be nil for Ruby 2.0 earlier versions, but that's not important here. So let's go on. We cannot go backwards. We can only go forwards, and not forwards, but up, and always twirling towards freedom. The brief repetitive lives of a method. Oof. Now let's try running a method a few times. So we go hi, hello, and then Twitch, right? We go hi, hello, no, right? Well, that was easy. Calling method in Ruby is just as easy as mentioning its name to Ruby. If the method doesn't take parameters, that's all you need. But you can add empty parentheses if you'd like, but they're not needed. What if we want to say hello to one person and not to the whole world? Just define hi and take in the parameters. Now that's fairly simple. So we'll do def hello name, and I've got puts, and we get what up, and hashtag name in the hash, send it to the internet. Oh, okay, yeah, that's why, because we're on the wrong side of it. And okay, hi. And then we go hi. Documentation wants us to go Matt's. What is Matt's real name? Let's forget. Matsumoto-san. So Matsumoto-san, I'm calling him Matt's. Yeah. Yukihiro. Yukihiro-san, Matsumoto-san. So my buddy Dan was kind enough to say that he was going to watch the first stream. So, hi, Dan. What up, Dan? Gonna go Layla, Ning Ning. What up, Ning Ning? And then bravest girl of all. What up, Yosha? So it works. Let's take a second and see what's going on here. Holding spots in a string, right? So it's just holding the variable. So what's the hash name bit? That's Ruby's way of inserting something into a string. That bit between the braces is turned into a string if it isn't on one already, and substituted into outer string at that point. You can also use this to make sure that someone's name is capitalized, right? So we go def hi name at. No, we don't want that. We want name equals okay. World, right? And this puts right. Hello. Name dot capitalize. Again, come on, dude. All right. Okay, yeah, it can takes in the C, so we can kill that method. So def hi. What are the hotkeys? You just seen them. Back again. Everybody clap your hands. There we go. Puts. Hi, Dr. Nick. Right. Dr. Nick. Uh-oh. It doesn't look like that worked out. But if I go, hi, Nick. Hi, Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick. Okay. That doesn't work because we didn't do that right. So let's try that again. Well, different definition. Name. Hello. Ah, hell. Hell, Nick. Didn't even notice that one. Name world. Right. So we just leave that alone, and we just do puts. Hello. Right. Name plus capitalize. See, that's the problem. So if we do that. Yeah. So go def hello. The reason why I'm not trying to rush through this is because I am new to Ruby. So you see, just make the same stupid mistake again and again. Hello. See, this age of AI, everyone thinks, you don't have muscle memory, you don't need muscle memory, AI is going to do all the things for you. Yeah, and then it's just this simple stuff you can't do. If you can't do this simple stuff, then what good is here? What skills? I constantly question this, like, is the people are saying, we're going faster than ever, man. Okay, what skills exactly are you bringing to the table if AI is doing literally all the work for you? And I say that likely if I go hi, right, hell world, we're back to hell world, oh no, if I go hello, right, but if I go hello, right, because hello world, if I go hello, Dr. Nick, name capitalized, factor gets capitalized. Yeah, we missed what that was. Okay, so that explains that. Yeah, somebody might criticize me for wanting to do this, but it's just like this gives you some idea of writing functions, writing the idea in the language. Gives you a different outlook. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. And the sad thing is, if you're not willing to go through these basic things, how can you expect the AI or whatever LLM or whatever you're attempting, supposedly trusting, and creating technical debt for? I'm creating technical credit, right? So I credit myself this experience. I give myself this experience by just walking through this. I do it on Twitch. Everyone can see me. He's such an ugly, bad programmer. Oh, it's all right. But people can say mean things. That's what the internet's kind of for. But you get better by just doing it and doing it in public. People can say, "Hey, that guy is doing stuff." Welcome to Walmart. How may I help you? Welcome to Wawa. How may I help you? Evolving into a greeter. Man, this is where AI is going. I want this job when I retire. So what if we want a real greeter around? One that remembers your name and welcomes you and treats you always with respect. You might want to use an object. Greeters are an object. Well, let's create a greeter class. Okay, we do def initial. Let's see. Name. Let's just put customer because that makes more sense when we did world. And name equals a name. Right. So taking in the params there. And that. Then you do def say hi. Puts hi hashtag name. And then end that. I like this little way of writing functions. I like it better than JavaScript. We'll have another day of that. See you later. Name. Y'all come back. Now, yeah, here. Now we can alright, say bye. Alright. The new keyword is class. This defines the class from greeter and a bunch of methods for the class. So our methods, also essentially our functions, right? You notice the name. This is an instance of variable. It is available to all methods of the class. So anytime we do this, right, we're making the param, right, available inside of this class, right? So anytime we see this, right, it's making the whole thing available. So this is an instance variable available in the class, and you can see it's using say hi and say bye. So let's see how so how do we get this greeter class that's set in motion? Let's create an object. Okay, we're kind of doing a little better than last night. Okay, so we'll go greeter. And we go new. Call him Pat. So there we go. Greeter dot say. Okay, that's how you do that. Okay, cool. So we use tab to be able to go through this. Okay, greeter, that, boom. Ooh. What is interesting? And singleton class. Okay. See, you figure stuff out through learning. What is a singleton class? I mean, I know what a singleton is, kind of. For those who don't know what a singleton is. Right. Right, it's an object-oriented singleton. Lovely blue is in object-oriented programming. Singleton pattern is software pattern that is restricted in its instantiation of a class of a single instance. Right. So it is one of well-known Gang of Four design patterns. Gang of. Okay, well, we're invoking the Chinese Communist Party much. Right, so singleton, 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 get instance of singleton. Right. Common uses, right, preferred global variables. So, interesting that will just come up here. I've never seen that before, but ooh, we'll get to that later. Anyway, we're going through here. Okay, so let's go through here. So, see you later, bye. Y'all come back now here. Once a greater object is created, it remembers a name and path. Now, if we want to create a name directly, right? Now, if we want to go reader. Name. Uh-oh. Now we got a problem. Nope, can't do that. Under the object skin, the instance variables are hidden away inside the object. They're not terribly hidden. You see them whenever you inspect the object. So, see how I said this? Right. So they're not terribly hidden. You see them whenever you inspect an object, and there are other ways of accessing them. But Ruby uses a good object-oriented approach of keeping data sort of hidden away. So what methods do exist in the greater objects? So we go greater dot instance methods. That's something else, right? Pretty simple. Kind of present. Woo. Cool. Whoa! That's a lot of methods, man. We only defined 2 methods. What's going on here? Well, this is all of the methods of the greater objects, and a complete list including defined by ancestor classes. Hit him so hard his ancestors were. If we want to just list methods defined for greeters, we will tell it to not include ancestors by passing it parameter false, meaning we don't want methods defined by ancestors. Alright, so if we want to go here, do we need false? Let me just go. Alright. Well, that's more like it. So let's see the method our greater object responds to greater done responds to name. Nope, that's not gonna work. So what if I just go name false? Let me just go say hi. True. Say 2s. True. Right. So it knows how to say hi. And knows 2s, meaning to convert something to a string, a method that's defined by default of every object, but doesn't know name. So we've basically zeroed that out. Alternate classes. It's never too late. But what if you want to be able to view or change the name? Ruby provides an easy way of providing access to objects variables. So we go class reader. No. We want to go class reader. Then we go accessor, boom, name. And then we do end, name. Right. In Ruby, you can reopen the class and modify it. This is a lot like Python in that regard. And I feel like I've really learned something here using interactive Ruby so far. I find this infinitely fascinating, just more in the case where, especially in the age of VS Code and whatnot, just good old on the command line programming rather than, especially in the age of vibe coding, where you're actually just getting into stuff and putting stuff in and getting into stuff and putting stuff in. What does that mean? I mean more like you're just getting into the code, you're getting into the guts of it, you're figuring out what's going on, and you're understanding. I'll be honest, I'm pretty tired right now. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, didn't really want to. The day wasn't exactly how I planned it, but even now in my tired state, this makes a lot of sense to me. In Ruby, we can reopen class and modify it. The changes will be present in any new object and create even available in existing objects of that class. So let's create a new object and play with the its name property. So, am I starting to like object-oriented programming, or am I just tired? I get why people don't like it, but I'm not a big fighter on that. If it works, if it flies, it dies. If it works, it works. You know what I mean? Why get into a headache about it? Name Andy, right? So we got that there, and then we go greater dot spawn to name true. Spawn to name equals true. We'll just go greater. Say hi. We'll just go greater. Say bye. Okay, that works. Now we'll just do another one. Reader dot name. Oh, come on. Dot name. Nope, that doesn't do anything for us. Dot name equals Betty. What about Veronica? Can with this. Betty. Plus new line. Good job. Greeter. Even in this basic way, this is something I really enjoy. Hi, Dr. Nick. Hi, Betty. Nice to see you. Bye, Betty. Y'all come back now and see you later, Betty. New line. Y'all come back now, you hear? Betty was later found guilty of perjury, but was arraigned in higher court. So using the attribute accessor, you can define the new methods of name to get the value in name equals to setter. So the getters and the setters. How I missed you. Greeting anything and everything. Mega greeter neglects none. This greeter isn't all that interesting though. It can only deal with one person at a time. Can't we all? What if we had some kind of mega greeter that could either greet the world or one person or the whole list of people? He's got the whole world in his hand. Let's write this in one file instead of directly into. So they want us to do. Interesting. Can we do this? So let's write this file directly in the internet. So we go Control D. back down here. Yeah, that's alright. Shebang. I don't think I can do this on. Let's do like Yeah, I know this isn't the slickest way of doing this. Let's see. Most people just would probably tell me I'm not doing this right. Shebang, user, bin, end, Ruby. I don't think this. Okay. Yeah, no, this don't work. Yeah, not like this. Alright, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Make dir 20 rubies. Let's see how we're looking. Come on. Yeah, I gotta do this kind of a not too fun way. Welcome to VS Code. How can we help you today? I know people yell at me and say, okay, I found this out yesterday. You can do RU or RB. I'm going to do RB here, but apparently you can do RU, and I think that's pretty interesting in my opinion. Mega greater. Coming out of the whole world. Right, it says names. It's going to be equals to names. Right, and then we're going to just go end there, and then we're going to say if say hi. If right, names. Assuming this is null or none. Let's read this as putz. Don't be a putz. Okay, we have an else if statement names dot respond to each right names dot each do name. Let's names each do. Here's a question, because I actually don't remember if I have the Ruby extensions in here or not. I do have it installed. Ruby people, tell me whether or not I should get any of these at this point. Well, we're gonna have to install this at some time. At some point, we'll probably have to have some of this on here, but for right now, we just have the basic Ruby support extension installed. So that's fine. That's fine. Got a little bit, baby. In his hands, got a little bit, baby. His hands got the whole world in his hands. Why did I sing that song? Goodbye, everybody. Bye, Dr. Nick. Did he die? Is he dead canonically? Because there's a new Simpsons movie. This is not about Ruby, but there's a new Simpsons movie coming out, and I remember, for a movie that's almost 20 years old, on the first Simpsons movie, Dr. Nick had a giant thing thrown on top of him and he died. Now, many Simpsons characters have supposedly on-screen died before or had horrible things happen to them, and they came back the next episode perfectly fine. I haven't really kept up with The Simpsons in years. Is Dr. Nick canonically gone? Like, is he like Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz? Let me know. I want to know. Bye-bye, everybody. Why? It's not like I have something that I can just look it up on, right? This magic box. Else if that's names to respond to join. And okay, that's really this syntax is fairly understandable. Interested to know how this works in different places. Okay. Okay, join the list in the elements with a comma. Alright. So, see you later. Name dot join. Y'all come. I don't know if there's supposed to be how this is supposed to be spelled, but we'll leave it as is. Puts else puts. So we're either saying goodbye to everybody or just saying goodbye to one person. We're either saying hello to everyone or hello to one person. Interesting. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Goodbye, everybody. Now we want hashio, and names. Come back soon now. I'll just say come back. See you soon. See you soon. Right, better just do that. It doesn't write original code, you just copy and paste. Well, at least be a little original in what you write. 3 M's there. Then we're here. This is new. So what is the dollar sign? So dollars in Ruby. What is this representing? Ruby operators. Okay, so let's look at what Stack Overflow says from 14 years ago. If the file was 0, is equal to 0. Comes code Ruby. What's the meaning? Only run the following code when this file is the main file being instead of having been required loaded from another file. Alright, so this is part of the main file. No particular practice, adding a load path directory is not usually necessary in the advent of require relative and expand bound. Okay, interesting. It's a couple of Ruby mini design patterns. This is from 2016. Okay. It means if the file has been executed directly, i.e. as script, then find the directory the script is in and prepend it to the beginning and load a require search path. Okay. Interesting. Answered here, edited here. So this is definitely no ChatGPT. Thank God. Alright, so I'm just a little confused on where... I don't think this isn't like Python where we have to worry about the spacing necessarily. Megareader.new mag say hi mag say bye. Let's say mag names equals math Maxentius. There we go. What a name. Say hi and you say bye. Right. And then we have MG names. Right. And then we just put this in an array of Mikey, Donnie, Raph. Not Raffy. I never call him Raph. I guess they just call him Raph. Mikey, Donnie. Donnie, Leo, and April. We'll leave the rat father in there. Splinter. Then say bye. Right. Names. No, and then say hi. Say bye. And alright, so suppose I just do this in like the terminal and like a Linux and doesn't really give us much to go on. So we're gonna open up a new terminal. Blobby bloops. Let's see what we can do. I forget. Earlier today I had run a command in Ruby because it's called studying, and again I think it was just I'm not wrong. It works live. Hello, Mikey. Hello, Donnie. Hello, Raph. Hello, Leo. Hello, April. Hello, Sprinter. See you later, Mikey, Donnie, Raph, Leo, April, Splinter. Y'all come back soon, you hear? Alright. Alright, that works. Cool. Cool. I'm going to open this up just a little more so we can get a little more reading in. And then Ruby in 20 minutes. More like an hour, but that's okay. We're having fun. We're learning. We looked at this, right? We did our own little research. We kind of figured out what a singleton is, right? So, class singleton, private singleton, default. This is what I love about C++. All this just to, well, and this is the thing. Everyone says C++ is too hard to learn. This is what's happening under most programming languages in order for you to get 42, right? For the output value, right? So when, do I know much about this? I mean, to a degree, but I know something about C++, but I definitely know most people who are working on JavaScript or TypeScript or whatever you want to call it. You're just forcing C++ to run in a funny way in order for us to get this, right? So anyway, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to read, or we're going to finish up Ruby in 20 minutes. Then I am going to get a drink of water. Ruby in 20 minutes, the final chapter. So, looking deeper at our new program, notice the initial lines, which begin with the hash mark hashtag, or pound if you'd like. Yeah, it's pound, isn't it? Is it pound? No, yeah, that's pound. This is not star. In Ruby, anything on a line after a hash mark is a comment. And is ignored by the interpreter. Okay, that's how you comment out. First line, the final is a special case. And under a Unix-like operating system tells the shell how to run the file. Thank goodness. The rest of the comments are there for clarity. Our say hi method has become a bit trickier. Say hi if the name's .no question mark puts ... else if at names respond to each names the list of some kind iterate, right? Names each do name. Okay, so this is how we loop, I assume. Puts hello name and else puts names. Alright. Ooh, cycling and looping. Mr. John was right. Cycling and looping, aka iteration. If the @names object responds to each, it is something that you can iterate over. So iterate over it and greet each person in turn. Finally, if @names is anything else, just let it get turned into a string automatically and do the default greeting. So let's look at the iterator in more depth. @names.each do pipe name pipe puts hello pound sign, not pound, not star, pound sign, curly bracket name, curly bracket, exclamation point, end quote, end. That's how we read documentation around here, friends. Each is a method that accepts a code block that then runs the block of code. For every element is in a list, a bit between do and end is just a block. A block is an anonymous function or lambda. Interesting. The variable between pipe characters is parameter for this block. So, right, do and end, right, is just the block, right? Right, so this is the name. So names. So this is kind of like names of names or names in Python, right? Um, I will do a cross comparison later, not today, but maybe Saturday. So what happens here is that every entry in a list name is bound to that list element, and then the expression puts hello pound sign name is run them with that name, right? So if we pull this up here, right? So this is how this worked. So we have this up here, right? Names da 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 name, right? So we got here we got hello Mikey, hello Donnie, hello Mike Sanchez, right? Right. So we have the names joined here, the name Z soon, right? But this is the name, but we're not here yet. Most other programming languages handle going over a list of for loop, which let's see looks like this, and which looks like this in JavaScript, more or less. JavaScript is more okay. Am I wrong that JavaScript is more or less the same? For I equals 0. Right, right. It iterates and iterates. Right. I might have to do a whole thing on just the for loop and going over between the three languages. Just because because I know JavaScript pretty okay, and I know Python pretty okay. PHP. PHP is a bit of my lost child because I had really wanted to get that down and then I just never did. So, and here I am just going through Ruby because I thought Ruby would just be easy enough to learn. So, shows if you've been doing this long enough, you can just recognize patterns. Pattern recognition. It's horrible at it, but here we are. This works, but it isn't very elegant. Not elegante. So, there's Spy Family reference for you. Three-way variable like I, you have to figure out how long the list is, and you have to explain how to walk over the list. The Ruby way is much more elegant. Are you saying that C had something that they put into JavaScript and everyone in Java goes JavaScript? JavaScript's so hard. I don't like JavaScript. Let's create 55 different frameworks, and just to make it even harder. And then Ruby's just like, now we got this. The Ruby way is much more elegant. All the housekeeping details are hidden within each method. All you need to do is tell it to do with each element. The Ruby, I will read this again for clarity and emphasis and emphasize. The Ruby way is much more elegant. All the housekeeping details are hidden away within each. So anytime we just do each up here, all right, each, all this gets thrown into there, right? All we have to do is the do plus this, right? And then assuming that's what they mean. So each method, so all you need to do is with each element is all you need to do is to tell it what to do with each element. That's all you need to do. Internally, each method is essentially called yield Albert, then yield Barbara, then yield Charles, and so forth. Berta, Brenda, Bertha from Eartha. You see, people probably don't think I know how to read because I keep on making little slip-ups, which is funny. It's probably because I'm doing this too late at night. That's fine. Blocks. The highly sparkling glint on the edge of Ruby. The real power of blocks is when dealing with things that are more complicated than lists. Okay, so we're getting out of arrays. Beyond handling simple housekeeping details within the method, you can also handle the setup, teardown, and errors, all hidden away from the cares of the user. Right? So we can say goodbye. Say goodbye. Say bye. If it names a nil, puts right. So if there's nothing there, else if names respond to join. So it joins the entire list, right? But if you don't have a list, you just get the single name instead. I'm a little confused on why that is. So this say by method doesn't use each, right? Instead it uses the names to respond to the join method, and is all method if so uses it. Otherwise, it prints out the variable as a string. And the method is not caring about the actual type of a variable, just relying on what methods it supports, known as the duck typing. Yum, yum, yum. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, the benefit of this is that it doesn't necessarily restrict types and variables that are supported. Oh, all you type concerned people. If someone comes up to the new kind of class list, list of classes, as long as it implements the join method, the same semantics as other lists, everything will work out as planned. Kicking off the script. And this goes back to what we did, what we pulled up here, the 14-year-old. Ah, man, when this comes... 7 years modified, 14, 14, 3 months. It's October right now, so that means in January this will be, yep, yep, January 14th. January 14th, this post will be 15 years old. Jiminy Christmas. Anyway, kicking off the script. So that mega greeter class. The rest of the file just calls a method on that class. There's one final trick to notice in the line. If underscore underscore file underscore underscore equals no dollars. Well, most people have these days. Hey, that looks like my bank account. Right. File is a magic variable that contains the current file. $0 is the name of the file used to start the program. This check says if this is the main file being used. This allows the file to be used as a library and not to execute the code in that context. But if the file is being used as an executable, then execute the code. Consider yourself introduced. Well, yeah, and we've done this for almost 3 hours now, so I have a pretty... I feel between this and last night, a little what I did today, and which didn't record, but not everything happens on camera, guys. Consider yourself introduced, right? There's a lot more to explore in different control structures, not offers, blocks and yield, modules of mixins, and much more. I hope the taste of Ruby's left you wanting to learn more. If so, head over to the documents and round up links, manuals, all free and available online. Yeah, try Ruby Learn program. I've heard about Chris Pine's book and I'm somewhat blocks and procs beyond this tutorial. Right. No, there's a Ruby mailing list. I think that's just like all of this still feels very like late 90s, early 2000s coded, and I think these guys did a good job creating a documentation. This is the first time I walked through documentation like this with any language. I even have always have this around here because I'm always forgetting how to boot Django like an idiot. I'm just like, let's look at the manual. I have like the dummy, like the Python for dummies around here. I got it last year. Just found it fun. And I don't know, like I feel like I have a every time I go through one of these, I feel like I have a better understanding of programming, or at least of the getting a refine on the basics. I am gonna take a short break right now, so let's see. What can I leave you guys with for a moment? I need to go get water, and I don't want to just leave the screen up. Let's do this. Hey, girl, duck dancing gif. There we go. Alright, I'll be back. Where it is. Alright, be back in about 5 minutes. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Yeah, I liked when I was doing some CSS designing. I was trying to look for background colors. And I like this because it is well. Hey, let's get some RGB or hexadecimal patterns. That'll be fun. And then we're going to check the couple things for a moment, and then what we are going to do is we're going to look at the I'm going to look at the Python Ruby comparison, and then we are going to do a little bit of book reading from other languages. We are going to get into this. So we're going to look at this real quickly. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at this, and then we're going to look at the Python, and then we're going to have a little fun reading a funny little book. So but hang on 1 second. Gotta talk to my boxing bookie. Boxing bookie. No, I don't have that kind of pull. Good buddy of mine. Good leg level up. Checking on. It's a very, very important happened today, so I need to check on that. I'm trying to save a lot of time on that. Ruby from other languages. When you first look at the Ruby code, it'll likely remind you of some other programming languages you've used. This is on purpose. The syntax is familiar to users of Perl, Python, and Java, among other languages. If you're used to those, learning Ruby will be a piece of cake. This document contains 2 major sections. First, an attempt to have a rapid-fire summary of what you can expect to see in the major language X to Ruby. The second section tackles the major languages' features and how they might compare to what you're already familiar with. All right, fair enough. Language X from Dimension X. Alright, so let's look at this. Important language features and some gotchas. Here are some pointers and hints for major Ruby features you'll see while learning Ruby. Iteration 2 Ruby features that'll be a bit unlike what you've seen before and which takes some getting used to are the quote-unquote blocks and iterators. Instead of looping over an index like C, C++, and pre-1.5 Java, or looping like Perl for at and Python's for I in a list. With Ruby, you'll very often see some list dot each to do with this item. We're inside this block. Deal with this item. This kind of actually looks like Svelte to a degree. For more info on each and its friends, collect, find, inject, sort, etc. See renumerable sum method. Linkable? No, of course not gonna link. Everything has a value. There's no difference between the expression and the statement. Everything has a value, even if the value is nil. This is possible. X is down. X is less than Y, true, else false. So Z would be okay. Yeah. So symbols are not lightweight strings. Okay. Things to remember. Okay, so we're gonna hard wrap up around 10:50. Many Ruby newbies struggle with understanding that what symbols are. Hey, I struggle with symbols all the time. What they can be used for. Symbols can be described as identities. A symbol is all about who it is and not what it is. Fire up RB, IRB. And see the difference, right? George, object.id equals George. That's true. Okay. Object.id. Sorry, object underscore methods return the identity of an object. If two objects with the same object ID, they are the same. Point the same object in memory. Okay. As you can see, once you have used a symbol once, any symbol with the same characters represents the same object in memory. For any given two symbols that represent the same characters, the object underscore ID matches. Now, take a look at the string George. George, dear. The object underscore IDs doesn't match. That means referencing the two different objects in memory. Whenever you use a new string, Ruby allocates memory for it. If you're in doubt whether to use a symbol or a string, consider that what's more important, the identity of an object, i.e. a hash key, or the contents, the above example George. Everything is an object. Everything is an object. It isn't hyperbole. Even classes and integers are objects, and you can do the same thing with them as with any other object. I'd be interested to know what Casey Moratori thinks about this. This is the same as my class attributed to accessor instance var end, or a class, my class new do instance var. Variable constants. Constants are not always constant. Like common sense isn't too common. If you modify an already initialized instant, it will trigger a warning, but not hold your program. This isn't to say you should redefine constants, though. This isn't to say you should redefine constants, though. Naming conventions. Ruby enforces some naming conventions. If an identifier starts with a capital letter, it is a constant. If it starts with a $sign, it is a global variable. What I wanted to know. If it starts with an @ it is an instance variable. If it starts with an @, it is a class variable. Okay. Method names, however, are allowed to start with capital letters. This can lead to confusion. As the example shows, constant equals 10. Define constant 11. Now constant is 10, but the constant function is 11. So it's a loose language. It's not a strict language. Keyword arguments like Python, Ruby 2. Since Ruby 2.0 methods can be defined using keyword and arguments. For example, definition deliver from @ to now via mail. Sending. Okay, we're taking 3 or more arguments. Deliver B. So that'll sending A to B via mail. Deliver Pony Express from A to B. Sending from A to B via Pony Express. The universal truth. Oh God. Again with this. In Ruby, everything except nil and false is considered true. In C, Python, and many other languages, 0 and possibly other values, such as empty lists, are considered false. Take a look at the following Python code as an example. In Python, if 0, print 0 is true, else print 0 is false. Else print 0 is false. Equivalent Ruby. If 0, put is true, else put is false. End. Oh yeah, Ruby does kind of look like Morse code with the end. Access modifiers applied to the end scope. The following Ruby code: class by class, private. Def a method true end. Def another method, true and false end. I expect another method to be public. No, not so. The private access modifier continues until the end of the scope, or until the another access modifier pops up, whichever comes first. By default, methods are public. Interesting. Class. Now method is public. Def, a method, true, end. Private. Method, another method, false, end. Protected are really methods. These are things I understand but rarely use because I've done more front end than back end, and so I understand what they're trying to get at. But Java. Oh God, no, Oracle. The place where All right, fine. Let's read this. Method access in Java, a language I have never ever touched. Um, in Java, public mains. This is for everybody who does Java. This is for your benefit, not for mine. In Java, public means a method is accessible to anyone. Protected means classes instance. Instances are descendant classes. Instances of classes in the same package can access it, but not anyone else. And private means nobody besides the classes instances can access the method. Get it through your head. Ruby differs slightly. Public is naturally public. Private means methods are accessible only when they are called without an explicit receiver. Only self is allowed to be the receiver of the private method call. Protected is one to be on the lookout for. A protected method can be called from a class or descendant class instances, but also another instance as its receiver. Here's an example. Adapted from the Ruby language FAQ. Like I said before, like 2000s ass era, like 19 1999 has .html in the URL. Like, I love it. I love it to death. I think it's awesome. At the same time, just like we could maybe, MDN this a little. Could be hate me or love me for that kind type of comment, but it's stuff like that that makes it kind of look dead. Makes it look like it shouldn't be around anymore. This is why I think people have some sort of stigma against Ruby because of the official documentation looks like this. But then again, if you look at Python, you look at PHP, you look at some other stuff, it's not exactly eye candy. So what am I saying anyway? 10 p.m. Water time. Class test. Public by default. Def identifier 99 and def equal to another identifier equals to another dot identifier end right. T1 test.new. John Connor is born. T2 test.new. John Connor is saved. T1 is equal to T2 true. Now make identifier protected. It still works because the protected allows another as a receiver. So okay, so this is okay, so class test protected identifier. Now make an identifier private. No method error. Okay. Classes are open. Like relationships, Ruby classes are open. You can open them up, add to them, and change them at any time. Even core classes like integer or even object, the parent of all objects. Ruby on Rails defines a bunch of methods for dealing with time on integer. Class integer, def hours, self dot 3,600, number of hours in a second, number of seconds an hour, and alias hours of hours, 14 hours, June 1st. Okay, you will finally wake up. Time, make time. 2006. For any method names in Ruby, methods are allowed to end with question marks or exclamation point marks, exclamation marks, exclamation point marks, exclamation points, exclamation marks. Why not just points? By convention, methods that answer questions end in question marks. For example, array, pound, empty, question mark returns true if the receiver is empty. Potentially dangerous methods by convention end with exclamation marks. Methods of self and arguments, exit, etc. I hate etc. so much. Why not just say, for example, not all methods change their arguments end with an exclamation marks though. Array hash replaces contents on arrays and contents in another array. Doesn't make much sense to have a method like that. It doesn't modify itself. Singleton methods. Hey, coming back. Singleton methods are per object methods. All right. They're only available on the object you want to define it on. So class car inspect, hey, Jeep car, and then Porsche car new, Porsche inspect, Jeep car, right? Def Porsche inspect, expensive car and Porsche inspect, expensive car, another car new, missing methods. Oh God, where'd they go? Ruby doesn't give up. Ruby does not give up on you. Ruby doesn't give up if you can't find a method that responds to a particular message. Ruby believes in you, that believes in yourself, that believes in the method that you forget. All right, let's read that back one more time. Ruby doesn't give up if you can't find a method that responds to a particular message. Method and message. Method and message and method and missing and methods. Ruby doesn't give up if it can't find a method that responds to a particular message. It calls the method missing method. The method missing method. The method missing method. The method underscore missing method. With the name of the method it couldn't find in the arguments. By default, method missing raises a name error exception, but you can redefine it to better fit your application, and many libraries do. Here's an example. The ID of the name, the method called with the star, syntax collects all the arguments in the array arguments. Method missing ID arguments puts the method ID we call, but we have not found it, so it has plus these arguments and join. Okay. So the code just prints the details of them to call, but you're free to handle the message as you feel appropriate. Okay. Message passing, not function calls. The methods call really a message in another object. 1 plus 2 is the same as that, which is the same as this. Blocks are objects. Everything's an object. Block closures really are heavily used by the standard library. To call a block, you can either use yield or make it a proc by appending a special argument to the argument list like so. Def block and the block inside here. The block is the block passed to the method. The block and return the block. Add block. Curly brackets, pipe A, B, lamb pipe A, B, A plus B. Okay, this creates blocks outside the method in the proc.new with a block or calling a lambda method. Let it the unknown method, we can call that lambda. Similarly, methods are also objects in the making, right? It's not a failure, it's success in progress, as the kids said. Method. Puts call. Puts in it. Puts is an object. Puts is an object. Okay. Huh. Okay. Operators are syntactic sugar. Love sugar. Love syntactic sugar. All right. Most operators in Ruby are syntactic sugar with the precedence rules and method calls. You can, for example, override integer plus methods. So integer, class integer. You can, but don't, but please don't. Myself. You don't need C++'s operator plus, etc. You can array styles if you define array or array equals to methods with urinary. I almost read that as urinary. Urinary, take 1 plus 1 minus 2, define. Interesting. The operators are not syntactic sugar. They are not methods that can be redefined. Var equals var plus another var plus another var. Okay. Interesting. Now I knew I said I was going to go into the Python one, but like there's not really that much there. I want to actually kind of make up a couple of different ones of my own, do a little bit of comparison of these two things. I know everyone's going to say, oh, learn Python before Ruby, or Ruby, both are easy to learn, but you know, Ruby doesn't have as much market share anymore. I don't know, I think that's probably true, but that doesn't mean they can't be used. So, what we're gonna do now, friends, we're gonna get rid of our hey yeah girl. We're gonna read a book. It's a bit of some rights reserved, so this works under Creative Commons license. So, yeah, this is an older version of the license compared to the versions. So they're more user-friendly and more internationally robust. Right, this here are licensing your own works. So you're free to share and adapt. Right, so we are free to read this on Twitch. I'm pretty sure we can read this, and we're going to do this a little bit at a time. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now. But I stumbled upon this book when I was putting together this stream, and I thought, hey, why don't we do, toward the end of the stream, why don't we just go through this book a little bit at a time? And then, you know, it'll just be a little fun thing we do at the end. So we spent at least, what is it, since 8:30, it's 10:10 right now. We spent a decent amount of time going through Ruby documentation. We had our vegetables, we had our dinner, so let's have our dessert. So read this paragraph. At my local Barnes & Nobles, there's a huge wall of JavaScript books just waiting to tip over and crush me one day. And one day, and will. At this rate things are going, one day this bookcase will be tall enough to crush us all. It might even loop the world around several times, crushing the previous editions of the same Java book over and over and over again. And this, paragraph 2. This is a small Ruby book. It won't crush you. It's light as a feather because I haven't finished it yet. Teehee. And there's a reason this book will stay light, because Ruby is simple to learn. Don't read this one. Wise, poignant Ruby Guide to Ruby was released under the Attribution Share Alike license. So yes, please distribute it, print it out, read it leisurely in your house code. In fact, there will be a contest at the end of this book for the best house coat. I'm telling you. It's a coveted award, and you should feel honored to read about it, especially if you're reading about it in your soon-to-be prize-winning house coat. Now back to your regularly scheduled paragraph. I'll try not to feel utterly rejected. This book doesn't capture your fancy. I might experience a few long days of emptiness accompanied by profuse weeping. But other than that, I'll be fine. It's at least comforting to know that the following text cover my topic and will doubtless fill your Ruby lust. Learn programming, Ruby, legal term reference, Ruby user's guide, webmats. I'm interested to, and this isn't here anymore, because this is a kind of an older. Book was published in 2000. I believe, if I'm not wrong, this book was published in 2005, and where things looked a lot different. And everyone's like, now everyone's JavaScript, JavaScript, JavaScript. So what we might do is, I am thinking of doing the streams by opening it up with the Chris Pine book. Seriously, his name's Chris Pine? Wait, really? His name is Chris Pine? That just hit me. Like, Chris Pine. Not Chris Evans, Chris Pine. This is Chris Pine. Alright. He's 45. They're never gonna make that Star Trek movie. Alright, anyway. See, I want to see if I can find what Mats wrote. Sorry. Mats Moto-san no kakeru no koto wa mitsukare-tai desu. What, did he just start speaking Japanese in the middle of an English stream? What's going on now? Before we get started... Alright, cool. Welcome to the Pirate Radio of Technical Manuals. I really like that. It's fun. Why not have fun, I say? What's the point? Can't have fun. What is the point? Okay. Interesting. Well, let's get into it. Konnichiwa. Okay. Let's look at the cartoon. Because cartoon's cool. An elf and his pet ham. A giraffe surrounded by weezards. Microscopic canaries. This guide is a veritable showcase of live TV in the year 2012. And interestingly enough, this was made in 2020 or literally 20 years ago. 2005, I believe, was the publication date of this. Thanks to wise, poignant guide, even infants can learn Ruby. It's just that simple. Class self. Wah, mother, wah! I'm deeply touched by this strange book, Wise Poignant Guide to Ruby. Seriously, I feel great inside. Like a cavity of my body is filled with an avocado and mayonnaise whip. I'm small. I have adventures. Okay, now you get to start the book. Konnichiwa, Ruby-san. Opening this book. Pretend you've opened this book. Although you probably have opened this book. Just to find a huge onion right in the middle of the crease of the book. The manufacturer of this book has included the onion at my request. And so you're like, wow, this book comes with an onion. Even though if you particularly don't like onions, I'm sure you'll have appetite for logistics of shipping any sort produced discreetly inside an alleged programming manual. Then you ask yourself, wait a minute, I thought this book was a book on Ruby, an incredibly new programming language from Japan. And although I appreciate the logistics of shipping any sort of produce discreetly inside of an alleged programming manual, why an onion? What am I supposed to do with it? No, don't puzzle over it. You know, this is the David Lynch of programming books. This is like if David Lynch wrote a programming book. You don't need to do anything with the onion. Just set the onion aside and let it do something with you. Um, I'll be straight with you. I want you to cry, to weep, to whimper sweetly. This book is a poignant guide to Ruby. That means code is so beautiful that tears are shed. That means the gallant tales and somber truth that have you waking up the next morning in the arms of this book, hugging it tightly to you all the day long. If necessary, fashion a makeshift hip holster for poignant guide to Ruby. So you can always have this book's tender companionship. You really must sob once, at least a little sniffle, and if not, then the onion will make it all happen for you. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That is absolutely amazing. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna read through like the dog sidebar, and then once we're gonna get to before free book, then we're gonna go back up to the sidebar. All right, so we're gonna do the dog story. We're gonna do the red sunrises. Then we're gonna go back into the sidebar, read the sidebar, and then go back down and finish this page, and that'll be it. Okay. Because Uncle John only has, or Mr. John, whatever you want to call him, only has so much energy. So it's maybe not what we all need. Anyway, the dog story. So try this bit of poignancy on for size. One day I was walking down one of those busy roads covered with car dealerships. This was shortly after my wedding was called off. I found an orphan dog on the road, a woolly black dog with greenish red eyes. I was kind of feeling like an orphan myself, so I took a couple of balloons that were tied to a pole at the dealership and relocated them on the dog's collar. Then I decided he would be my dog. I named him Bigelow. Bigelow? We set off to get some milk balloons for Bigelow, and afterwards head over to my place. We would sit in recliners and listen to Zorky's zygotic Mindsy. Oh, we'd also need to stop by the thrift store and get Bigelow his own recliner. But Bigelow hadn't accepted me as his master. For 5 minutes later, the stupid dog took a different crosswalk than I did, and I never caught up. So whereas he had previously only been lost once, now he'd been lost twice. I slowed my pace towards the life of Milk Bones and an extra recliner. I had a dog for 5 minutes. Stupid Benedict Arnold of a dog. I sat on the city bench and threw pine cones at a statue of 3 sheep crossing a bridge. After that, I wept for hours. The tears just came. There's a little something poignant to get you started. I wonder where he went with all those balloons. That crazy dog must have looked like a party with legs. It wasn't much later that I pulled my own Bigelow and printed out a bunch of pages on Ruby. Articles from around the web. I scanned them through a train ride on a train. I scanned through them on a train ride home one day. I flipped through them for 5 minutes and then gave up. Not impressed. I sat staring out the window at the world. A life-size blender mixing graffiti and iron smelts before my eyes. The world's too big for such a little language, I thought. Poor little thing doesn't stand a chance. Doesn't have legs to stand on. Doesn't have an arm to swim. Doesn't have arms to swim. Apparently I can't really read. And yet, there I was. One little man on a flimsy train. And even I still have a baby tooth to lose at the time. Out of billions of people living on a floating blue rock. How can I knock Ruby? Who's to say I'm not going to happen to choke on my cell phone and die later that evening? Y is dead. Y is dead. Ruby lives on, which is ironic reading this today. The gravestone. What's in his trachea? Oh, look, a nook. I always said that thing could kill people, and man, I really love this. Just my luck. Finally, get to have a good long sleep underground, only to be constantly disturbed by Petshell's cannon going off in my stomach. Peck bells? Petch bells? The red sun rises. Oof, let's see if this gets a little. So now we're wondering. Now you're wondering why I changed my mind about Ruby. Quick answer is we clicked. Like when you meet somebody, why is somebody capitalized, in college and they look like somebody who used to hit you in the face with paintbrushes when you were a kid. And so impulsively, you conclude that new somebody is likely a non-friend. You wince at their hair, you hang up phones loudly during crucial moments in their anecdotes. You use your pogo stick right there, right where they are trying to walk. 6 months later, however, you and somebody are sitting at a fountain having a perfectly good chat. Their face doesn't look much like that childhood nemesis. You've met the good twin. You clicked. So whereas I should probably be pondering or pounding. It's 10:24 p.m. I've been up since 4. So whereas I should probably be pounding your teeth in with hype about Ruby and the tightly knit cadre of pertinent acronyms that accompany it everywhere, wetting the collective whistles of your bosses and their bosses' bosses, instead I will let you coast. I'll let you free fall through some code, injecting occasionally my own heartfelt experiences. It'll be quite easy, quite natural, and I should offer you some sort of motivation. Though some smooch kiss, I'm going to give you 3 best reasons to learn Ruby and be done with it. 1. Brain health. Vitamin R. Goes straight to the head. Ruby will teach you to express your ideas through a computer. You'll be writing stories for a machine. Creative skills, people. Creative skills, people. Deduction, reasoning, nodding intelligently. The language will become a tool for you to better connect your mind to the world. I've noticed that many experienced users of Ruby seem to be clear thinkers and objective, in contrast heavily biased and coarse. One man on one island. Ruby was born in Japan, which is freaky. Reader's note on that. I live in Japan. I don't think that's that freaky. Japan is not known for its software. It was known for its technology for a little bit, but yeah. And since programming languages are largely written in English, who would have suspected a language to come from Japan? Okay, and I want to point something out. I didn't find this today, but it was like Ruby. I was looking if Ruby was actually on the MDN or not, but Ruby annotation is actually is in HTML, so the Ruby HTML represents small annotation, right? So this clearly comes from having some sort of history with Ruby, right? I think that's pretty cool that Ruby essentially directly influenced HTML. Yeah, other things did too, but anyway. And yet, here we have Ruby. Against the odds, Yukihiro Matsumoto created Ruby on February 24th, 1993. And for the past 10 years, he steadily brought Ruby to a global audience. It's triumphant and noble and all that. Support diversity. Help us tilt the earth just a bit. Which, despite his saying that's freaky, that it comes from Japan, I actually do kind of agree. After, 48 hours of using Ruby, maybe I'll come to hate it, but right now, seems pretty fun. Free. Using Ruby costs nothing. The code to Ruby itself is open for all the world to hail and exhale. Heck, this book is free. It's all part of the great big giveaway that should have some big hitch to it. Should have some big hitch to it. You'd think we make you buy a vacuum cleaner or timeshares or fake Monets. You'd think that there'd be a 90-minute presentation on where the owner of the company comes out at the end and knuckles you into sealing the deal. Nope, free. With that, it's time for the book to begin. So now you get your highlighter and start dragging it along each captivating word of this sentence. I think I have enough hairspray and funny money on my person to keep me sustained until the final page. All right. Let's read the sidebar. Sidebar, what am I going to do with the massive proceeds from this book? Anyone who's written a book can tell you that how easily an author is distracted by visions of grandeur. In my experience, I stopped twice for each paragraph and 4 times for each panel of a comic just to envision the wealth prosperity of this book will procure for my life. I fear the writing of this book will halt altogether to make way for an armada of SUVs and luxury town cars that are blazing away in my head. Rather than stop my production of the poignant guide, I've reserved this space as a safety zone for pouring my empty and vain wishes. Today, I was at an Italian restaurant, Grando's, and I was paying my bill. Happened to notice under the glass a bottle of balsamic vinegar going for $150. Fairly small. I can conceal it in my palm. Aged 22 years. I spent a lot of time thinking about that bottle. It is often an accessory in some of my obsessive fantasies. In one fantasy, I walk into a restaurant and toss a stack of greenery on the counter and earnestly say to the cashier, "Quick, I have an important salad to make." In another related fantasy, I am throwing away lettuce. Such roughage isn't befitting of my new vinegar. No, I will only come to a point where the fame and aristocracy will have to corrupt me to my core. My new lettuce will be cash, cold hard, Mrs. Price. Cold hard cash, Mrs. Price. Soon I will be expending hundreds for a block of Mizrata cheese. My imaginations have gone beyond possession. My imaginations have now gone beyond possessions of. Certainly, I've thought through my acquisition of Grecian urns, motorcades, airlines, pyramids, dinosaur bones. Occasionally, I'll see wind-tossed cities on the news, and I'll jot down my shopping list. Hurricane! But now, I'm seeing logical. Simply put, what if I amassed such a fortune that the mints couldn't print enough to keep up with my demand? So everyone else is forced to use Monopoly money as actual currency. And you would have to win in Monopoly to keep food on the table. These would be some seriously tense games. I mean, you go to Mortgage St. James Place and your kid starts crying. In addition, I think you'll begin to see the end of those who choose to use the free parking square at the underground coffers for city funds. You've got to hand it to fund money, though. Fake money rules. You can get your hands on it so quickly. For a moment, it seems like you're crazy rich. And when I was a kid, I got some of the neighborhood kids and we built a little Tijuana on our street. We made our own pesos, wore some bros, and everything. 2005, kids. One kid was selling hot tamales and 2 pesos. 2 pesos. Did this kid know what money was? The money was fake? Was he out of his mind? Who invited this kid? He didn't. Didn't he know this wasn't really Tijuana? Maybe he was really from Tijuana. Maybe they were real pesos. Let's go make more real pesos. I think we even had a tavern where you could get totally hammered off Kool-Aid. There's nothing like a bunch of kids stumbling around, mumbling incoherently with punchy red clown lips. Okay, that is very, very odd. Very, very fun. And maybe could get somebody canceled. I don't know. I'm just reading the book and maybe giving a little voice to it. I'm not necessarily endorsing what's being used, though. How books start. Now, if you read a book, you know no book can properly start without an exorbitant amount of synergy. Yes, synergy. Maybe you didn't know this. Synergy means that you and I are supposed to cooperate to make this great reading experience. To make this a great reading experience. We start off this book by getting along well in the introduction. This togetherness, this synergy, propels us through the book with me guiding you on your way. You give me a reassuring nod and a snicker to indicate your progress. I'm Peter Pan holding your hand. Come on, Wendy, the second star to the right, and on until morning. Was that a Star Trek reference, or is that actually in Peter Pan? One problem here. I don't get along well with people. I don't hold hands very well. Any of my staff will tell you. At the opening ceremony of this book, I catered event with stadium seating. I discovered that the cucumber sandwiches weren't served in tea towels. As a result, the butter hadn't set with the cucumbers right. Anyway, I made a big scene and set fire to some of the advertising trucks outside. I smashed the spotlight to pieces, and so on. I had made this loud, maniacal laughing thing going on deep into the night. I had made this loud, maniacal laughing thing going on deep into that night. It was realness. What does that mean? But since I don't get along well with people, I hadn't invited anyone but myself to the opening ceremonies of this book. So I wasn't really embarrassing. So it wasn't really that embarrassing. I kept it under wraps and no one found out about it the whole ordeal. So you've got to know that synergy doesn't actually mean synergy in this book. I can't do normal synergy. No, in this book, synergy means cartoon boxes. What I'm saying is this book will be starting off with an exorbitant amount of cartoon foxes, and I will be counting on you to turn them into synergy. And that's as like good a place as I could probably leave it for tonight. That is mightily hilarious of a book because then it is actually kind of turning into cartoon foxes. We're gonna get into this. I encourage everyone to read this on your own. I don't get how can you play TV on Twitch? Like, I get how people can play games, but how can you like watch movies and crap on Twitch? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, that's gonna do us for today, my friends. I'm still amazed that Ruby found its way on into, and how Ruby found its way into here is essentially doing Japanese, which I've never really played with this because I know how to write Japanese, so I don't need to really. Okay, so this is what's it's doing Ruby, and what this is called is furigana. Basically, what this means is if you don't know Japanese, um, there's this thing called kanji, right, which is essentially means Chinese letters. here I go, white man splaining Japanese, but anyway, in the cell industry. And how Ruby seems to work in HTML is that it is providing the pronunciation for step above text, which I think is pretty cool. Like this, we've now built in furigana, just built-in furigana, and which is just infinitely useful for a lot of different things. Um, but yeah, um, I don't know any Japanese developers very well, so I'd like to know if they actually do implement Ruby or not, and see how this actually works under the hood. But yeah, we'll tomorrow after we go through a bit more of the documentation, we might do Chris Pine's book on Ruby, and we might do some of this as well. I was working a little bit on a rock paper scissors program using Ruby, so I saw some like fun stuff with ASCII. So I might do a little bit of like ASCII rock paper scissors shoot. And as always, rock paper scissors shoot. There's nothing else. But until that time, my friends, we'll leave it there. So thanks for watching, anybody who's watching, and yeah, everybody have a great day. Be well.